In the midst of a harsh winter, when blizzards can claim lives in minutes, a man. He ventured alone deep into the icy wilderness. No electricity, no communication, no escape route. The only things he brought with him were his survival skills, and the belief that nature would reward him accordingly. For those who dare to bet everything. He sold off all his music assets, abandoned his safe life, and ventured into the deep forest to hunt beavers, trapping weasels and battling the deadly cold day after day. This is not just a hunt, but a battle between man and nature, where even a small mistake can have consequences. This could be the end. When confronted with ferocious wild beasts, the overwhelming sense of menace is enough to send shivers down one's spine. Hair at the nape of the neck. Only seasoned hunters dare to calmly confront them. In the remote region of Alaska, winter arrived unusually early this year, the sky appearing to have a huge hole in it. The snow was falling heavily and relentlessly. Marty realized this was a bad sign, as the unexpected snowstorm had completely disrupted their original plans. This forced him to leave home earlier than planned and venture deeper into the Alaskan mountains. The snow has just temporarily stopped, but the weather forecast indicates a severe snowstorm is expected in just a few hours. The more intense the attack, the more Marty had to seize the opportunity to take off. Noah's daughter is 8 years old this year, and it's time for her to learn the survival skills of a hunter. So this year he will. Bring your daughter along. Since a plane couldn't accommodate the whole family, Marty asked his close friend Ten to help. The two men had a clear division of labor. Marty carried the necessary supplies and equipment, while Taiji was responsible for the other tasks. Once everything was ready, Marty was the first to take off. The propeller churned up the white snow, creating a beautiful curve in the air. Seeing Marty take off safely, Taiji cautiously flew after him. He was more careful than usual because Marty's loved ones were on the plane. Throughout the journey, the two maintained constant communication via walkie-talkie and remained vigilant for any changes. Fortunately, they arrived safely, but the real challenge had only just begun: landing the plane. Because there is no dedicated runway here, they rely entirely on the snow to absorb the impact. Amid the violent turbulence, Marty successfully brought the plane to a stop. Compared to him, Ty's technique was even more outstanding, with an incredibly smooth landing. Poor Marty standing next to them got snow music all over his mouth. After saying goodbye to the old man, Marty led his family toward their log cabin in the woods. But the danger is not entirely over, as grizzly bears often occupy the wooden houses in this area. Marty, abandoning the royal order, music cautiously instructed his wife and children to wait in place while he walked around the house with his gun. The inspectors were very thorough. Only after confirming that he was safe did he call his family. The bear claw marks clearly visible on the door show that a grizzly bear once tried to break into this music place. After removing the security measures at the door, the whole family entered the house, officially beginning their journey. The best performance of this season. At this time of day, there were only about 5 hours of daylight left, so Marty's family woke up very early to prepare breakfast. Lavish. Noah was full of anticipation for her upcoming adventure in the wilderness. After eating their fill, they went out to work, and before going hunting, there was one more important task. The job involves collecting firewood because it gets extremely cold here at night, and we are heavily reliant on firewood for fuel. Everyone reached the stream bank where Marty had chosen a straight spruce tree, accompanied by the sound of machinery roaring. The giant tree crashed to the ground, but despite the shocking sight, Noah showed no reaction. Marty suddenly realized that only by participating himself could he truly feel the joy, so he called his daughter over. They gave him the tools and helped him saw down his first tree ever. At this point, Noah was truly excited because this feeling was much more stimulating than cutting modeling clay. Seeing his daughter make such progress, Marty felt a warm feeling in his heart, knowing that this was the rightful inheritance. Meaning of a hunter's family. After settling his family down, Marty went to the trap site alone. After a few months, he needed to check again and set up more traps. His trap line covered an area of about 40 square miles, but the deeper he went, the heavier his mood became because there were hardly any animal footprints to be seen on the snow. Even the rabbit tracks were found along only one path, whereas in previous years this place was full of footprints. Rabbit. This unusual phenomenon worried him because rabbits are the main food source for ferrets, lynxes, and other animals. Other predators. Now that the prey has disappeared, those predators naturally no longer appear. Time flies, 3 weeks have passed in the blink of an eye, but the results are heartbreaking. It wasn't because of the small number, but rather because absolutely no animals for their fur could be caught. Looking at the empty traps, Macaw frowned because in all his years of practice, he had never encountered a single one. The beginning was so bleak. Reluctantly, he checked one trap after another, only to be met with even greater disappointment. He finally had to realize that he had to change or he would truly go bankrupt this year. When darkness fell and her husband returned empty-handed, his wife understood that there had been no harvest for him that day. Marty stated his plan was to close the trap line here, return home, and figure things out from there. The next day, after packing their bags and reinforcing the defenses of their wooden house, the whole family left. The road to the jungle plain. This outcome is unfortunate, but even stopping losses at the right time was a wise decision. Back home, Marty spread out the map and studied it carefully. His gaze lingered on the mysterious and dangerous mountain range to the southwest, which the locals called Mount Kaiti. It was a wilderness area isolated from the outside world, where sheer granite peaks and vast glacial valleys form a natural barrier. It is a place that even the most experienced pilots rarely set foot in, but it is precisely this pristine, untouched land that nurtures a diverse population of wild animals. It is incredibly rich. and Marty understood that perfectly. This may be the last chance to salvage this disastrous hunting season. Although we would have liked to bring more supplies, the limited space of the music jungle plain meant Marty could only bring the bare minimum of survival equipment, including a tent. A small amount of food and some necessary trapping equipment will be needed. Before he left, his wife repeatedly reminded him to be extremely careful. The daughter also reluctantly said goodbye to her father. With the roar of its engine, Marty began its perilous journey. After many hours of flying, he had traveled over 300 miles from home, and finally reached the outskirts of Mount Kaisher, where a majestic natural wall rises majestically with jagged peaks reaching up to 9,000 feet high, straight up to the sky. To get further inside, one must pass through a treacherous gateway called the Devil's Wind Tunnel, where the air currents change unpredictably, with gusts of wind reaching 60 miles per hour, strong enough to overturn Marty's an airplane. Little one. As the plane shook violently, his hands gripping the control stick were drenched in cold sweat, but he turned his head. This is even more dangerous. After 10 minutes of nail-biting flight, the plane finally escaped the vortex, causing Marty to let out a joyful cheer. However, the danger was not over yet because he had absolutely no knowledge of the terrain of the valley below, so landing carries significant risks. Based on his years of flying experience, he chose a relatively flat area and eventually landed safely. To prevent the plane from having its music blown away by strong winds, Marty used specialized ice anchors to secure it firmly. After disassembling the plane, they found an open space in the forest and set up a tent. After everything settled down, he the musician decided to survey the surrounding area to quickly familiarize himself with it. Early the next morning, Marty stepped out of the tent to begin his day's work. To survive here, the first thing to do is solve the problem of freshwater supply. Since we didn't bring a snowmobile this time, we relied solely on our snowshoes for transportation. Even though the area is covered in snow, melting them would still consume a lot of firewood. Fortunately, he found a stream that originated from a glacier. But when he went to fetch water, he quickly noticed something unusual as the overflowing river water caused the ice and surrounding areas mixed together, making it very prone to collapse. Following the direction of the current, it will gradually move closer to the aircraft. He decided to move the plane to a higher position. Marty took out his chainsaw, cleared a path, cut down all the trees in its way, then started the plane and began flying. He performed a beautiful spin on the snow. Unexpectedly, river water overflowed from below, causing the plane to get stuck and unable to move. He kept accelerating, causing thick plumes of smoke to erupt from the exhaust pipe. The plane slowly emerged from the snowdrift and eventually climbed onto the high bank of the river. Marty is lifting the tail section of the plane. After the plane's course was adjusted, everything was finally temporarily safe. As the daylight faded, the ghost had one last thing to do: gather more firewood to keep warm. When surviving alone in the wilderness, safety is always the top priority, so he pays special attention when cutting down trees. Observe your surroundings. And when I was carrying wood, I couldn't help but think of the sled back home. When night fell, Marty lit a fire and then drifted off to sleep. The next morning it snowed lightly again. Marty, axe in hand, ventured deep into the jungle, preparing to set up an entirely new trap line. In this primeval forest, the tracks of pine squirrels were everywhere, causing a smile to spread across his lips. Because it seems this adventure was the right decision. He chose a moderately sized, neat spruce tree, felled it, and tied it diagonally to another tree to create the base. The path, then fixed the animal trap to the log and hang a piece of elk antler at the end. What a bait! To further enhance its appeal, he also applied a special secret bait. Having set up the first trap, Marty continued on his way, trying to cover as much of the area as possible to improve his chances of success rate. The next day, he returned to check the traps. The other day was busy, and I only managed to order 5 units all day. It's not a lot, but it's enough to gauge the situation. The first trap was empty, which disappointed him slightly. He checked again, but the next 3 were also empty. Something unexpected happened, completely contrary to initial expectations, causing Marty's heart to gradually sink. A sleek, shiny male pine cone was hanging from it, which surprised them. Marty burst into hearty laughter because that was exactly the scene he had been hoping for. All the gloom in his heart instantly vanished, and he began to feel full of hope for the future. A few days ago, Marty acquired his first pine cone of the year, setting a perfect start in the region. Mount Kaiti in Alaska. Thuatang charged forward, setting up a 5-mile-long trap line, and today he was checking the results. He approached the first trap with mixed feelings of nervousness and anticipation, and this place didn't disappoint him, as a shimmering pine cone was caught in a trap, much to Marty's delight. Excited, the emotions were so intense because the trapping season had been underway for almost a month, but the first 3 weeks were spent in the hunting grounds. He was completely penniless before. We had no choice but to venture into this wilderness. There are only 8 weeks left in the trapping season. Marty calculated that at the current pace, he could completely salvage the season because each hide could be sold. Approximately $200. But the joy was short-lived when the next trap dealt him a heavy blow. Only one paw remained on the trap. The pine weasel had vanished. From the tracks on the ground, it appears this was caused by a wolf. Marty was furious because wolves are greedy and extremely reckless predators. They even dare to tease bears, let alone steal prey from hunters, which is already a musical story. Daily, and subsequent checks confirmed Marty's worst fears. The wolf had indeed vandalized the merchandise. His series of traps. The wolf viewed those traps as free food. The 3 traps in a row behind were not only emptied of bait, but even the pine cones caught in the traps were also scavenged. They were all killed. Marty secretly vowed to himself that he absolutely had to catch this wolf, Otherwise, the entire hunting season would be ruined. Left with nothing, he went back and ran to get a large trap, the kind used to deal with wolves. But this species is extremely cunning, so catching it is not easy at all. Marty set a trap under a tree and used fresh deer antlers as bait, then patiently waited until the next day. Upon returning to check, he discovered that the trap had not been activated, but footprints had appeared in the snow. The wolf demonstrated that this cunning animal saw through all disguise and was not easily fooled by fire. At this point, Marty was forced to change his strategy. He decided to set up a new trap line in a different area to get away from the hateful wolf. His plan was to travel upstream, crossing the mountain pass to enter another valley where there were many large clout palm tree. The pine squirrel's preferred habitat includes provisions for several days' worth of food. With his sleeping bag and hunting gear, he set off in search of a new hunting ground. Although the scenery here was picturesque, Marty had no mind to appreciate it because of the river flowing from there. The glacier has not yet completely frozen over, making crossing it impossible. He walked along the riverbank for nearly 2 hours, but still couldn't find a suitable crossing point. As daylight faded, he was forced to change his plans and attempt to climb the steep mountain. The Alaskan mountain range features frozen granite cliffs stretching for hundreds of miles. Marty found the lowest point between the two peaks to climb, but even so, the difficulty was still immense. He had to use both his hands and feet to get across. And after countless hardships, we finally reached the summit of the mountain, which is about 6,000 feet high. An ideal vantage point for observation and strategic planning. The entire valley unfolds before your eyes. Through the low, dark green canopy, the faint tracks of pine squirrels gave Marty renewed hope. Motivation. He quickly descended the mountain before dark, entered the forest, set up a makeshift shelter, lit a fire and began roasting. He ate a piece of elk meat for dinner, then crawled into his sleeping bag and fell asleep soundly. The next morning, the harsh cold had covered the sleeping bag with a layer of white bones. Marty struggled to get up and began searching for traces of the pine cone. Before long, he discovered their footprints in the forest, so he set a trap on a nearby tree trunk. There, with the experience of a seasoned hunter, trapping animals was as easy as everyday life for him. Throughout the following period, he both tracked the pine squirrel's footprints and set more traps around the area. After completing the last trap, Marty returned to camp exhausted. To fill his stomach, he heated up a bowl of frozen rice that tasted very ordinary, completely incomparable to grilled meat. After resting for a while, he went to check the traps. Normally he would check every other day, but this time the situation is special, so he wants to assess it. The potential of the area. And his first trap didn't disappoint, catching a pine marten. Even better, the traps further back also caught another one. Marty was extremely pleased because the two ferrets meant $400 in income, and also proved that his decision to leave was absolutely the right one. Although I wanted to stay in this fertile land longer, due to the limited amount of food I brought with me after a week, Marty was forced to return home. The backpack was laden with precious mink hides. There were still about 3 hours to go until Ben Min, so he used his flashlight to illuminate the path and walked for a while. By then it was completely light outside. The main base was only 5 miles away, but the most dangerous obstacle had already appeared. A fast-flowing river. If someone were to fall, it would be very difficult to guarantee their safety. To avoid the widest part of the river, Marty deliberately took a detour of an extra mile to find narrower branches. Although the surface of the ice may appear calm, a deadly threat lurks beneath. He drew out his axe and with each step, he struck the ice forcefully to hear the echo in order to assess the situation. Load-bearing capacity. Thanks to his extreme caution, he finally made it across the glacier, but there was still music ahead. 5 more miles. 2 hours later, night had completely fallen, and the exhausted Martiti had finally returned to headquarters. The moment he lit the fire, he felt like he had been reborn. The next day, he went to check the wolf traps, hoping for a surprise during his absence. But the cunning wolf wouldn't even come near the trap, so Marty decided to abandon the area because he doesn't have much time to get involved with it. But upon returning to the camp, he discovered new tracks indicating that the wolf had been there and even sat there. Observe his camp. That reckless act completely enraged Marty. He wasn't in a hurry to leave anymore. Instead, he decided to teach the wolf a lesson. He took out a large animal trap and placed it behind a fallen tree trunk, using a piece of moose skin as bait, and deliberately left the camp to give the wolf an opportunity. A day after his return, Marty was met with a surprise. The hateful wolf finally paid the price. At the cost of one's life, he was extremely excited that his mink trapping career could continue. Furthermore, the wolf's valuable fur somewhat compensates for the losses caused by its destruction of weasel traps. Since then, Marty's career has entered a period of flourishing. With only 2 weeks left in the hunting season, every minute counts. He checked the trap line while continuously adding new traps, and his efforts paid off when a series of traps yielded explosive results. One by one, the pine martens appeared, making Marty laugh out loud. In just one day, he caught 5 ferrets worth up to $1,000. In the following days, he worked frantically, extending the line of traps, and finally his efforts. That hard work brought in a total income of about $6,000 as the trapping season was drawing to a close. He decided to close all the traps and go home. Although the income wasn't very high, this entire hunting season, full of ups and downs, still had an ending that made Marty satisfied. To lighten the load on the small plane, he had to pack the mink skins neatly, while the leftover meat was left behind. We had no choice but to leave it to the beast. The next morning, he prepared for takeoff, but in this harsh, freezing weather, the engine malfunctioned. It needs to be warmed up for 2 hours before it can be started. Marty opened the engine cover, placed the propane heater inside, and then quickly tidied up the camp, emptying the stove. Follow the heater and carefully dismantle the expensive tent because freezing snow can tear the fabric. Just as he was ready for takeoff, he was stunned to discover the engine was still ice cold because the heater had been accidentally switched off. This meant that he couldn't fly that day and had to sleep on the plane. At dawn the next day, Marty lit a fire to restart the heater tucked into the engine compartment and waited anxiously. When it was fully light, he checked again and found that the engine had warmed up and was finally ready for takeoff. He removed the anti-icing sheet from the wing, loaded the equipment onto the plane, inspected the runway, and then started the main engine. Wake up and head home. The plane wobbled as it plunged onto the runway amidst thick smoke, then slowly lifted off the ground, passing the test. The first challenge. But ahead lies an even more perilous challenge. Traversing the windswept gorges of the Apocalypse Range, filled with fierce Arctic winds, where gusts of wind lashed the plane like invisible hands, Marty gritted his teeth and tightened his grip on the controls. And after a breathtaking flight, he finally escaped from the gorge. Despite the dangers lurking among the towering mountain peaks, the majestic natural scenery captivated him. Contented, after a 4-hour flight, the familiar log cabin came into view. Hearing the engine, his wife and daughter ran out to greet him. They landed safely on the runway. Little Noah immediately ran up to him asking for a gift, and he showed her the wolf skin, which delighted her immensely. After 2 months of hardship and solitude, all the difficulties seemed worthwhile. In the biting cold wind, an old man with gray hair named Tom was busy in front of the wooden house, wielding a sharp knife and swiftly dealing with the animal. The deer was just hunted, snow fell on his shoulders, but it didn't disrupt his concentration. Tom could have enjoyed his old age in Florida, but he unexpectedly returned. Recalling his time in the sunny coastal state, he couldn't help but feel nostalgic, because despite the beautiful scenery, his heart remained restless. Understanding his father's love of freedom, he took him fishing at sea. For someone like Tom, who has spent 35 years living in the mountains and forests, the vast ocean brings a new and refreshing feeling. Prepare a few small fish to use as bait. Tom hooked the small fish onto the fishing line and started fishing. But my son said there's no need to hold the fishing rod all the time. Just hang it on the yacht and wait for the fish to bite. While waiting, Chat told his father all sorts of good things about life by the sea, hoping he would stay permanently. Tom just smiled gently, but his heart still longed for the mountains and forests. Soon after, the fishing rod vibrated strongly, signaling that a fish had bitten. Tom quickly reeled in the line and pulled up a shimmering blue fish. That familiar feeling of excitement has returned. In the following days, the daughter encouraged Tom to visit more relatives. They went to the farm where their son worked. Seeing the healthy horses made Tom feel like he was back in his mountain village, and his mood brightened. And what surprised him most was being reunited with his elderly mother, Mary, who was still very lucid. Even though Tom was getting older, in her eyes he was still just a child. The family reunion filled him with happiness. Chat prepared a horse-drawn carriage to wait for the whole family to go for a stroll. Under the warm sunshine, Tom leisurely drove his car, temporarily forgetting his worries. But a car speeding past startled the horses, shattering the peace. Looking at the endless stream of traffic, the smile on Tom's face gradually faded as the urban noise overwhelmed him. Uncomfortable. Back at the farm, Tom gazed at the horses in the fence, lost in thought, as if he himself were trapped. Loss of freedom. The person who understands a child best is still their mother. Mary recognized his feelings and gently advised him to follow his heart. Because while family advice is important, one must ultimately decide their own fate in old age. Hearing this, Tom finally made up his mind to return to familiar places, as the Yak River Valley was his final destination. Together with him, having just left the city, Tom needed to regain his form, and skinning animals was the best way to practice. While I was busy working, Eli the hunting dog rushed back in a panic. Covered in blood and looking utterly pathetic, Tom was furious, especially since he had only recently left the mountains. Wild animals brazenly invaded human territory, and even attacked his dog. But strangely, upon closer examination, no wounds were found. That made him suspicious, and he decided to follow EY's footsteps. The old hunter, slung over his shoulder, exuded a menacing aura. Before long, he found a series of wolf footprints in the snow, along with the partially eaten carcass of a deer. Clearly, the blood on Eye's body came from this deer, not from an injury. However, the situation is not so simple because wolves rarely approach human settlements and certainly do not leave food behind. I haven't finished eating yet. Furthermore, a single hunting dog cannot possibly drive away an entire pack of wolves. All signs indicate this was a deliberate plan, with the wolves intentionally creating a murder scene near the home. To gauge Tom's reaction, if he showed fear, they would often come back. Faced with such provocation, Tom was forced to stand firm. He returned to the cabin, retrieved a long-dusted animal trap, and wore gloves throughout the process to avoid leaving any traces. He smelled the trap, put the contents in his bag, and carrying his gun ventured deeper into the mountains. As the snow grew thicker, covering the area for this event, the heavy snowfall created a tense atmosphere. Therefore, it's more stressful. Tom followed the footprints to track them down. Because the wolves might be lurking around, he was always on alert for any movement in his surroundings. Once he found a suitable spot, Tom took out the animal trap and wrapped it in a plastic bag to prevent the scent from spreading. Because wolves have a sense of smell hundreds of times more sensitive than humans, even the slightest lingering scent is enough to kill them. After making the arrangements, Tom returned home to wait. The next morning when he returned to check, he found that Tuet had erased all traces the night before. There were no footprints left. The wolves were there, but the deer had been devoured, proving that the wolf pack had indeed returned. Tom went to the trap location with high hopes, but unfortunately he didn't catch any, and the traps were even triggered. This shows that his opponent is even more cunning than he thought. As night fell, a mournful wolf howl shattered the silence. Eli immediately barked in response. Tom switched off the lights just as he saw a wolf lurking in the shadows before quickly disappearing. The wolf's provocative intentions were all too clear. Tom couldn't contain his anger and decided to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Back in the workshop, he took out the old trap and adjusted the trigger to increase its sensitivity. Then they ventured deeper into the forest, searching for wolf footprints, and buried them again using scent-proof plastic bags. Carefully set the traps under the snow and camouflaged them thoroughly. Early the next morning, even before arriving at the inspection site, Tom sensed something unusual. The air felt strange. It smells dangerous. He immediately loaded his gun, looked carefully, and sure enough there was a wolf ahead. Tom decisively pulled the trigger, the gunshot shattering the early morning silence. However, with his extensive experience, he didn't rush forward but remained vigilant, knowing full well that the wolf was alive and hurt. Tom only approached when he was sure it was safe. It was a fully grown gray wolf. Tom's tall figure stood beside his prey. This image quickly spread throughout the mountains like wildfire, reminding the animals there of their terrible past. The emperor returned to the old fake hunter. Following the wolf hunt, the Buffalo River Valley returned to peace, and the wolf pack completely left the area. That day, music neighbor Tam brought over a bison hide that he had obtained from a friend, and asked Tom to help him. Please check if it's valuable or not. If processed properly, a bison hide can sell for up to $3,000. But the problem is that this bison had been dead for several weeks, so its skin was starting to rot and shed its fur. Others would have given up long ago, but Tom wasn't one to surrender easily. He wanted to challenge himself with an extremely difficult problem. Montana was once a haven for wild bison, but due to overhunting, only about 1,000 remain today. There are 15,000 of them, so each hide is incredibly valuable. However, winter is also Tom's busiest time of year. Processing this bison hide is like a gamble. Either he makes money or wastes a few days. Effort. The two men used a frame to stretch the sheet taut, waiting for it to harden so they could easily scrape off the rotten meat and excess fat. And after a while, Tom started the shaving process. The rolled up pieces of beef fell to the ground, looking just like slices of fresh, delicious meat. Being a perfectionist, Tom polished it so thoroughly that not a single speck of music was left behind. Even though I know this will be a very long process. When finished, the original hide, weighing nearly 25 kilograms, was reduced to about 5 kilograms of its finest quality. At this point, Nan brought out a special mixture made from animal brains. This is a secret technique passed down by Native Americans for thousands of years. They moved the wooden frame into the workshop, and Tom Fett applied a solution to the leather surface, causing the leather to gradually harden, soft and smooth like velvet. Once this step is complete, the rest is up to fate. A day later, Tom returned to check on the results. The hide has begun to take shape. He meticulously trimmed the edges of the leather, but after drying, the leather was still quite stiff, so he had to soften it further. The process involves constant observation and scrutiny, a task that demands immense patience. For Tom, who is over 70 years old, this is no easy challenge. He even felt his blood pressure was about to spike. Once the leather was soft enough, Tom put it on, instantly exuding a primal, untamed wildness looking nothing like it. He was like a tribal leader. At this stage, the tanning process can be considered complete. However, for the music to sell for $3,000, there's still one crucial step left. Smoking. To create color. This tripod was erected 18 years ago. Time has made it loose, no. It's clear whether it can withstand the weight of the hide. Ton tried pulling the rope hard, but unexpectedly the support frame immediately collapsed, leaving him speechless and forcing him to put it back up. From the beginning, he wielded his axe, chopping down several straight, large pine trees, skillfully stripping the bark, and then erecting a new sturdy frame. After installing the pulley system, Tom tried pulling the rope again, and this time it was perfectly stable. He lit a fire to smoke the hide, but the thick snow caused problems because the steam could boil the hide. Contrary to the original purpose, what Tom needed was dry smoke, not steam. After some thought, he used a deer to tie the mouth of the chimney shut, hoping this would be effective. If perfect. This process takes about an hour, during which time he goes to chop more firewood. Suddenly, the sound of a dog barking interrupted his work, and Tom looked up to see that the deerskin had caught fire. Despite being over 70, Tom rushed forward with incredible speed, swiftly pulling the burning animal hide down. He had just put out the fire by pounding on the snow, and although he was saddened to lose a deer hide, he was also lucky because I haven't tried using it directly on wild cattle yet. Tom suspected the problem was that the chimney was clogged, so he scrubbed it repeatedly with a brush. When Nancy brought out the precious bison hide, Tom hesitated but ultimately decided to carefully stretch it out and tie it securely. The smoking process lasted for many hours, and Tom didn't dare leave for a moment, constantly monitoring the situation. As darkness fell and the temperature dropped, Nanny was there to bring hot coffee to warm them up under his watchful eye. As night fell, the temperature dropped to -35 degrees. Nanny went to check if the old man had frozen solid, then left the lamp lit and went back inside. A few hours later, the smoking process was complete, and Ton saw that the bison hide was uniformly colored, of perfect quality. I'm pleased that my hard work over the past few days has paid off. Seeking thrills, the old hunter traded his gun for a primitive bow, added stone arrows and went hunting in the forest. White-tailed deer. This is a bison river valley in Montana, covered in harsh winter ice and snow to store food. Tom went into the mountains to hunt along the Coe River, where the animals usually drink water, until he reached a bend in the river where a fresh deer on the snow captivated him. Following the tracks, he soon found a deer. It saw Tom too but didn't run away. Because Tom was a skilled hunter who controlled his killing intent and appeared harmless, Shio didn't bother with an old man. As Tom got closer, the doe realized the danger and went into the forest. Tom followed slowly, refraining from shooting the female deer or the fawns in order to protect the target is where the female deer outnumber the male deer. After more than a mile of patient waiting, a strong male deer unnoticed revealed half its body. Tom seized the opportunity, drew his bow, and fired an arrow that whizzed through the air. The wounded deer tried to run away, but the arrow sealed its fate. Tom leisurely followed behind and found it slumped in the snow. This deer yields about 50 kilograms of meat, and its coat makes for a beautiful coat. Even though the snowstorm intensified, it did not extinguish his enthusiasm. He had to perform the surgery before nightfall. Nani's wife also came out to help. Tom used a knife to cut the deer in half along the incision line, then brought it into the warm house to continue processing it. Nas sorts the meat according to needs such as grilling or making soup, stores it separately, and marks each portion. After settling his food expenses, Tom began thinking about making money by crafting knives from deer antlers. With his renowned local craftsmanship, each of his exquisite knives can sell for up to $200. He has to fulfill 2 pre-orders today. These antlers are shed naturally every year. Tom usually picks them up when the weather is nice and then cuts them to the size of the handle. Next, we make the blade. He used to use steel blades, but this particular order was special because the client requested that he use raw, natural stone. This type used to be very popular in the past but is rarely seen here. Tom found a good piece of stone, but shaping it required advanced technique. He tried tapping with his gauze for a long time without success, so he had to ask his friend Bob, a professional examiner, and said it was a high-quality stone that had been heat-treated, making it unlikely to crack, then tapped it, following the grain of the stone with precise strokes to create a perfect blade. Tom marveled at it as if it were a work of art. Works of art. Unfortunately, Tom accidentally dropped it on the ground, causing the stone to make a cracking sound. It was found that the blade was not completely broken, so it could still be repaired. After Bob's action, the blade was sharp again. This time, Tom carefully attached the blade to the gauze and secured it with asphalt. But because so much stone had been wasted, there was no room left to make more blades. Luckily, Bob had brought along another volcanic rock that was also quite remarkable. After half an hour of sharpening, the second primitive knife was completed. Looking at the 2 works that were the culmination of his hard work, Tom smiled contentedly as he received the $400. Besides making crafts, Tom also earns money by catching animals he catches. Every few days he would go to check the traps, aiming for weasels. Seeing the snow full of footprints, the wild wolf and the lynx believed Tom would strike it rich today. But the first trap was empty, which disappointed him because he hadn't caught any prey for days. But the next trap dispelled the gloom when, in the dark hollow of the tree, a ferocious weasel bared its fangs menacingly. Facing the ferocious beast, Tom silently drew his gun. A single shot rang out, ending its sinful life. This most ferocious predator in the mountains has killed countless small creatures. Ultimately, it became the prey, and this mink skin could sell for up to $200. Tom returned home happy. The moment Nani saw the loot, she was visibly astonished because it was such a bargain. To increase the heat inside the house, she added some pine logs to the stove and then prepared dinner. Meanwhile, Tom began to skin the animal, its sharp claws adding value to the hide and making processing easier. This is a difficult task, requiring experienced hunters. After peeling the skin, he had to scrape off any loose pieces. But the cold is a major challenge because low temperatures cause the skin to freeze quickly. Unlike the previous bison hide, which was stretched on a frame to freeze before being easy to scrape, mink hide is too small and requires scraping off the fat. While Tom was busy working, Nancy brought out a bowl of cooked mink meat, its rich aroma immediately filling the air. Music stimulates the sense of taste. This was Tom's first time tasting it, and he found the flavor similar to fatty, wild raccoon meat completely captivating. It's all to his liking. Just then, the weasel had almost finished its task. Tom decided to go inside and enjoy himself. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel to watch more exciting videos. See you again.